Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome, everybody. I definitely am excited about today's show. It is one that I have looked forward to quite a bit because it's on a topic that among other things fascinates me and has been a part of my life. Not that I've experienced it, but I've certainly dealt with a lot of people that have. We're going to be talking about a book called it's 30 near-death experiences with startling, no, that's not it. It's Verified Near-Death Experiences, Proof of an Afterlife. And it's a book with 30 individual profound near-death experience, each one coupled with startling, irrefutable moments of verification that challenge our understanding of life, death, and the afterlife. They're not just personal accounts or of journeys into the unknown. They're stories backed by verifiable facts that couldn't have been known in any ordinary way. They are a compelling exploration of the verifiable nature of near-death experiences. It offers a powerful testament to the possibility that death is not the end, but perhaps only a doorway to a deeper truth. So prepare to question everything you thought you knew about life and afterlife as we delve into this extraordinary and sometimes inexplicable world of near-death experiences. The author is Simon Brown, and he is the host of 2 influential podcasts. He's a clinical hypnotherapist and an author specializing in topics related to consciousness, reincarnation, and the afterlife. He's produced over 800 podcast episodes, engaging with leading experts and scholars in the fields of near-death experiences, reincarnation, and the continuation of consciousness. His podcasts, The Alien UFO and Our Paranormal Afterlife, have collectively garnered over 6 million views. We all know that's a ton of views. Obviously, an area of interest and excitement for many people. And in his spare time, he's an avid bass guitarist and science fiction writer. So he's well-rounded and very busy, obviously. Welcome to the show, Simon.
It's great to be here, Barbara. It's nice to talk to you.
Well, I'm really very excited about this because this is a topic that many people, have interest in, and yet, of course, not everybody has experienced a near-death experience, but a lot of people know of people who have. And the book was just phenomenal because all of the accounts were just so profound and exciting. And it's sort of, so many people today talk about death as an ending, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a beginning. And so all of these people gave that feeling to me that it was not something that death itself is not something that they are going to fear as much as look forward to in the future, which is a very exciting thing. And there were commonalities amongst all of them. You want to go into some of what the commonalities actually were?
The commonalities is the things like the out of body experience and the tremendous feeling of love and the life review. There's people who seem to describe the same location a few times in the book. That's the location in the afterlife. And also, it's really changes people. They can be so different after their near death experience. And there's two or three cases in the book where people have miraculous recoveries from terrible illnesses. So you do see a lot of commonalities. They're basic ones, but at the same time, the near-death experiences can be so personal to the individual that they're all different. So that's one of the things that I really like about it. It keeps it so interesting.
Yeah, it's not same old, same old. I've talked about people who felt like they were flying, others that they were walking, others that they were in, um, landscapes that were more vivid than anything they'd ever seen before. That was another thing that it seemed that colors were more vibrant, and it's almost as though this life is not as vibrantly alive as the afterlife is. And I was fascinated by that. I'm a flower person, so when they talked about the flowers being more vivid, I'm looking forward to that. It's just it's an exciting experience, and nobody was afraid. I think that's what got me. There was no feeling of fear. It was, oh my God, what's going to happen next? It was more as though they were curious. They just didn't know where they were, but they weren't frightened. There was no fear. And the approaching of crossing over is often fearful, but once they've crossed, there's no fear at all.
Yeah, it can be neutral for some people, and others it's so joyous. There's cases in the book where people meet their deceased loved ones, and that's so happy. And they even talk about a void, just a black void after they die, and it seems to be going on forever all around them, and it's just darkness, which could sound scary, but a lot of them who have that experience say it's just wonderful, and it feels so cozy and loving to be in that space.
Well, and the other thing that everybody seemed to see was they had they had vision of everything all around them at the same time. It wasn't just focused sight. It was they could see 360 degrees around them at a single moment, which I was fascinated with. That to me is, instead of just our eyeballs focusing in one direction, it feels as though it's a level of consciousness that is 360, so that you have total awareness of everything around you, which is a superpower for sure.
Yeah. And also the thing with colors, I think, the physical eyes we have can only see a certain amount of the spectrum. So when you're freed of your body and you're freed of your eyes, you can see all the colors that are out there, things like ultraviolet and infrared.
I think the other thing was that I found fascinating was that, I don't remember if it was in the book or if it's in some of the notes that I have, but someone who was blind was able to see what in their near-death experience.
Yeah, there's a famous case of a lady who, when she was born, she was quite ill, and as a newborn baby, they put her in this oxygen chamber, so she was breathing pure oxygen. Now, I think this was back in the 1950s, and what they didn't know then is that if a baby breathes that, it destroys their optic nerves.
Oh,
So
wow.
from pretty much the moment she was born, she's been blind, and when she was an adult, she said she has no concept of vision at all. And even when she dreams, it's all with emotions and sounds, and she's never seen anything. And then her body died on an operating table, and suddenly she found herself with vision. And at first, it was quite overwhelming, but she recognized herself on the operating table because she said she was quite skinny. But there was a ring on one of the fingers she recognized, and she started to realize this is what sight was. So afterwards she was able to describe what happened in the operating theatre while her body was dead, and that was a great verification there that this woman who is blind did see stuff while she was out of her body.
And, that makes life a lot easier when you have something you can then compare it to. I mean, there's no way that could be faked. And I know a lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of scientists, because there's really, aside from what people bring back, there's no way of verifying accurate. It drives scientists crazy, I think, that they aren't able
Mhm.
to, pin it down and say, this is an absolute because we've proved it. And I love the fact that it's a level of consciousness that we're talking about. It's a level, it's it's your aura, your auric body. It's a spirit body that's you, that is experiencing all this, but that it's a spirit body that exists, and it means that the you that is you does go on, and there's no judgment. And it was so phenomenal to read through all of the experiences. I kept thinking, oh, this can't get any better, but it does. And you get to the point where it's, how could anybody deny this? I mean, the things that people are able to relate to other people, the fact that they would wonder what was going on with a relative in the waiting room, and they were in the waiting room listening to what was going on and knowing what those people were thinking, and being able to bring that kind of information back and sharing it with people. I would imagine at some point in history and time, people who experienced stuff like this were put in insane asylums.
Yeah, and also in history, this may be where the idea of heaven comes from people thousands of years ago having near-death experiences and spontaneously coming back and describing everything that happened to them. Because it is almost seems to me, and I'm not Christian, I never have been, but this idea of heaven that is in Christianity can sound a lot like the environment that near-death experiencers go to sometimes.
Is I would wonder, is someone's experience reflected by their belief system as they're growing up? Because I've heard of people who were agnostics who have had experience like this, and they didn't see angels and with halos and wings and stuff like that, but they did see people, and they they realized that there was some place else that they were going to go. But and in some cases, profoundly religious people had a more biblical sense of what was going on. So is it our I know our perception of reality creates it. So is that the same with our perception of the other side? The same thing?
I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. With the near-death experience, I've come across people who are atheists and they might meet Jesus during their NDE. And then there are people who are very strong Christians who have no contact with any religious figure during their NDE. And I feel with a near-death experience, it's tailored exactly for you, for exactly what you need. And so that's what you get, and it's perfect for you, and it changes you so much. But then there's when you die, I think, and you're not coming back. It's not a near-death experience. The kind of thing I hear is that you go to the place that matches your frequency or that resonates with you, and it may be that you're a very strong Catholic. So initially, when you die, you go to a space there's only Catholics there because that's your frequency. But then you do move on from that, and but then you hear so many different descriptions of what happens to you after death that it gets confusing, and the more you learn the less you know. It gets to
Yes.
be like that.
No, that's very true. It to me, it's magical, and in many ways, it saves people so that they can do something more important when they come back into a life experience. Um, I've not, maybe 100 people I've talked to that have had near-death experiences, and in none of them did anybody say, it's no big deal, and they just went on with their life. Everyone has had some sort of shift or change in their perception of the purpose of their life. And,
Yeah.
it's kind of like you haven't been. What I love is, especially, most of the people that have had this kind of experience are very normal. In other words, they have normal lives. They're not, you don't, it's not a lot of people in extreme power, though they do have them too. But the majority of people are everyday people who come back with feeling a purpose to make a change in their life so they can help other people as well. And
Yeah.
that
There seems to
that
be.
that to me has greater meaning to it than if, say, oh, I don't know, a political figure who is, very important to the world and stuff, having a near-death experience. Their life review might be very different from a life review of somebody like me or you or the mailman. Um, but there is that life review that everybody seems to have, and there's no judgment. There's
Yeah.
well, what you do feel is what happiness or sadness you may have caused another person, which again is a very important aspect to be aware of.
It's like when you have that experience, you're the one judging yourself, and you might have a spiritual being with you, a spirit guide, and they'd be backing you up. They'll have their arm around you and they'll be saying, "Don't worry, I'm with you through this." And they're not judging you. And this is all part of the learning experience. I think the reason why we incarnate is to have that learning experience with the
Yes.
emotions and the life review. It's just part of it. And I wonder sometimes if people have a life review in an NDE and then they come back, and then when they die, eventually they have a smaller life review because they've already seen some of it in the near death experience.
Or maybe they have a total picture of, and then you had the NDE, and then you changed your life, and then this is what happened. So you have comparison.
So people become a lot more spiritual and a lot caring of the environment and animals, and leave behind this desperate need for money and a big house and prestige. Their whole attitude to life is so different afterwards.
Absolutely. And, there's always been in the metaphysical field, people are of two minds, either animals have souls or they don't. And I have heard about people, and I've seen it, where there is an animal in the afterlife. So my philosophy is, of course, if they have a spirit, they have a soul, and they go through the same thing. And so it's kind of reassuring in many cases, especially animal lovers, that they're going to be reunited not only with their loved ones, but with the animals that they've shared their life with as well. No,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's, I'm pretty sure they're there. And it's funny because I can remember seeing a deer hit by a car, as it was crossing the interstate, and I saw the body tumble, and I was horrified. But then I saw the etheric body get up and go on grazing. So, I know that they have that aspect of their physicality, and they must have a spirit as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this one of the cases in my book. A person gets into that point where they're in the afterlife and there's this incredible landscape and the animals are there. And he talks about his dog running up to him and greeting him there. So there's no doubt about it.
I'm glad because, I have a special connection to my animals, and um, a lot of them going to have to be a big field for me. But
Yeah. You
But
need a
it
big
is,
house.
yeah. But it's, there are so many questions that people have about what happens when we die. And you begin, I kind of was wondering when the Pope crossed over, what is it like with him? I mean, what kind of atmosphere, greeting? I mean, he was a very humble man. So I'm wondering if what he walked into or what he drifted into, whichever case it was, if it was a very comfortable, humble surrounding, or if there were, I don't think there were trumpets blazing and an angelic chorus there. Maybe there was, but I don't think he would expect that. So I think that what he got was humble and very full of love.
Yeah, I probably would have gone to the space that matches his frequency,
Yeah,
and he probably was a kind of I don't you call it a real strong Catholic who's completely embedded in that religion. That some
yeah.
people can get really take it too far, I suppose. Like maybe
It,
they say everyone's a sinner and children's are all sinners, and they're just really mean about it.
well, what about people who, I mean, who think a lot of themselves, who are impressed by themselves, are arrogant? When those people cross over, I mean, I don't believe there is a hell. I just don't believe it. But kind of, if I see it, I'll believe it, but I don't believe it at this moment. But if those people, when they cross over, I know that it is a loving environment. I know it is full of love, no matter who you are. And it would be, I kind of wish there was someone that we could talk to that had not had a nice life, a peaceful life, a kind life, a giving life, and see what kind of environment they imagined for themselves or they expected for themselves.
Yeah, well, there's somebody in the book who was pretty awful. He said that when he died, what that caused the near-death experience, he was drinking at a party and taking drugs, and he got in
Yes.
his car at 2 a.m. and he was eating mushrooms as he was driving. And he'd had a terrible upbringing, and he was just an awful person. And it was during that near-death experience that he had the life review, and he saw what he's been doing and the sort of person he is, and that really changed him. So that I think, almost like the more awful you are, the worse the life review you get, and that's is such an impactful experience to have, that the people will judge themselves. I've heard there's maybe spaces in the afterlife where you go to that's a kind of a healing space, and that might be because the way you died on earth might have been a long illness, and so when you die you kind of expect to be like that when you get there. But I think there's also healing for psychological things, and when you have a life review that is so bad that you have to go into a space to process it, I suppose.
I would think so, especially people who have like dementia. Um, as far as I can tell, um, at a certain time in their illness, part of them splits off to the other side while the other part stays here and finishes the lifetime. So that there is that element of they are whole and they are totally whole once they have crossed over totally, but that at some point in time, part of them is no longer there and it has to be on the other side. I don't think it's in a waiting room. I think it's already processed, and that in some cases, probably they are met by themselves when they cross over.
Yeah,
I,
there's the phenomenon of terminal lucidity. Have you come across that, where people with Alzheimer's who have it really bad in the days just before they die or the hours, suddenly they come back and they're just back to normal.
Yes.
And it's like the physically the brain's not capable of that level of consciousness and communication, but it's as though they've never been away. And
Yeah.
the thing is, though, they never say, "Oh, I've been traveling," or "I've been in the afterlife," or this or that.
No.
They seem to like they don't quite understand. It's almost, or they might say, "I've just been resting," or something.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I know that in some cases they come back to say goodbye. They come back to say I love you to the important people in their life, and thank you, and then they're gone. Um, I know that my husband was dying of cancer and in a coma, and he woke up and he looked at me and he said, "I love you," and then he died. And it was kind of like important to him and or important to me that I hear that. But but then, and he'd been gone. He was gone, but it was like, oh, by the way, um, you know, it was a very nice experience. But yeah, that does happen. I think that the I've often thought that the brain was like a computer, that it was capable of doing a lot of things, but that the level of that we have our consciousness, and then we have a higher consciousness, a spirit consciousness, and that's the part of us that travels lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. The consciousness, the everyday consciousness, and the personality kind of stay here, but the spiritual consciousness is what does the traveling. So that um, there are times when the spirit consciousness has just gone, has split off. I know that my mother had dementia, and 5 years before she actually died, I swear she wasn't there. She was functional, but it wasn't my mother anymore. So there was the everyday consciousness that was continuing the everyday things that we do, but the spirit consciousness was no longer there. Um, and when she died, I couldn't tell. I know that part of her left, but I couldn't tell if the spirit part came back or not. It happened too fast. But yeah, it is a very exciting. The level of consciousnesses that we have within our body is profound, and the higher consciousness, the spirit consciousness, it's that working through our lower consciousness that can often create miracles. And that's why you have people like the Buddha who can, um, you know, appear on one side of a river and then suddenly he's on the other to teleport him to the other side. There is that that powerful consciousness there that our brain is capable of, but it has to be fed by the spirit consciousness, and not everybody attaches to that part of themselves all the time.
Yeah, there's people in my book who have a coma, they're in a coma and have a near-death experience during the coma. And that's one of those things about near-death experiences is the body doesn't have to die for somebody to have that out of body and spiritual experience. So you're right. And with Alzheimer's, I talked to somebody on my podcast who was channeling with automatic writing, and it
Huh?
was coming through from somebody they knew with Alzheimer's. And this person was saying, "Yeah, I'm off traveling. I'm seeing all these amazing things."
Yeah, that's the exciting thing about it. Excuse me, most people don't realize that we have all these levels of consciousness inside of us, and we aren't always capable of attaching to them or connecting to them, but they're there. And I think at some point in time we're going to learn to really open that portal and permanently connect to the spirit consciousness. And at that point in time, magic will happen all over the world. But it's a matter of learning how to connect to that level of consciousness that is there, that spirit that is lifetime to lifetime gathering material for who knows what, and you know, understanding that this journey as a human is one, as you know, the physicality is an avatar. It is not who we truly are, and a lot of people don't understand that.
I know we're very embedded in the physical, aren't we? But it's like the experience we're having right now of sitting on a chair and maybe feeling hot or cold, and maybe your body feels heavy, and you're really grounded, and this is all you really know. And it is difficult for a lot of people to get beyond that. And some people will just refuse to accept it, won't they? It's almost like you try and tell them about these things, and they put their fingers in their ears and start saying, "I can't hear you. I can't hear you."
That's about it. It's true, and I think that society as a whole, I would love to see meditation taught in school, so that people would understand there's a way of peacefully regenerating your energy. There's a way of getting into other levels of understanding of life and the people around you. Um, and it's frustrating at times watching some people struggle when they don't have to struggle. And I know that I have a friend whose mother is she's in the end stages of dementia, and her daughter keeps saying to me, when is she going to cross over anytime soon? And I said, as far as I can tell, her spirit is very happy telling everyone to go to hell. So I said, she hasn't completed her contract yet, so she's going to stay for a while. And when she's done, she'll go. But it's sort of like, it's agonizing for my poor friend who is seeing her mother go through all of this stuff. And I said, you know what? You love her. She knows you love her. She has a purpose, and I don't know what it is, but until she's fulfilled that purpose, she's going to stay. And sometimes people, when they think of the purpose that we have for a lifetime, think that it has to be some grandiose thing that will move heaven and earth. And sometimes it's just saying I love you to someone who doesn't know they're loved, or it's touching someone's heart in some way that changes their life, and then you can move on. It's our purpose doesn't have to be something that is going to magically change everything. It's just this is what I'm here for, and when I do this, then I'll move on, and I'll find another purpose, another direction, maybe even another dimension to go to, so that it's an exciting. We're travelers through time and space, and while we are definitely linked to the earth at this point in time, we certainly, at least for this moment, have a purpose of sharing information and sharing wisdom and knowledge. And certainly, 6 million downloads, that's impressive.
Well, I don't know how it happened. You just keep making episodes and putting them out, and people like it. I've been very lucky having so many great guests on the podcasts, and it's just something that built over time. And I try to let the guests do all the talking so they can get their message across, and we can all learn from it. And yeah, so I started podcasting in 2018, so it's built up since then,
Oh,
and
wow.
it just seems to keep going. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, now you're a clinical hypnotherapist. What is the main focus when you do hypnotherapy with a client that you're looking for?
Well, I specialize in past life regression, so it's always a past life regression session that I do with somebody. And sometimes people want to do a session just to see what comes up. Other people want to do a specific kind of therapeutic thing, something emotional or something physical. And then when we go into it, it's a little different to when it's just an exploration session, because there's this idea that your spirit guides know all of your past lives. And so we would ask the spirit guides at the session, please show us a life that is the origin point of this issue you're experiencing in this life. Or we might ask them to just show us the past life that would be most beneficial to see today. And so that's what I do. It's past life regression every time, and it's fascinating.
Oh gosh, yeah. Are Do you think that phobias come from past lives?
Yeah, they can do. Yeah, all sorts of things show up. And I mean, I had a lady who has this thing where she's overweight and she always has to have loads of food in the house. And she just doesn't know where this all comes from. It's like she gets really upset and anxious if the food cupboards aren't completely full. And we went to a past life in the Victorian era where she was very poor. She had 7 children and her husband had left her, and she didn't have enough money to feed the children, and a couple of them died, and she was super skinny in that life. And so that seemed to embed something in her in this life where she always had to have food in the house, and she always had to overeat a bit to make sure that she was not so skinny as the last life.
Well, that I've seen that with animals who have. Oh wait, you've stopped. I can't hear you.
That's okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can. Yes,
Yeah.
animals who have starved when they are put into a home where there is food and everything will habitually overeat because they're so reminded of when they were starving that they just have to keep cramming food in just in case there isn't another meal.
Yeah. And so I see all sorts of things coming through from past lives that you can trace and see how it's affected you in this life.
Oh,
And when we
absolutely.
see them, we find them, we can try and release the negative energy that's coming through or break the bond to the past life. So it can be very healing in certain ways.
Oh, absolutely. I think that past lives are um, I don't think they're not meant to be just fun type stepping stones. They're meant to teach us something, to give us something to move forward with. They're lots of people have thought, well, that was just a past life where I had fun. Well, that's not the point of it. There was something else going on there. I don't think our spirit experienced an entire lifetime for nothing. There had to be a purpose there. And I
Yeah.
think they're fascinating. And actually, it's so many people say, well, I wasn't a king or a queen or whatever, but not everyone can be Cleopatra, and not everyone can be Julius Caesar, but the mundane reality that you may pull up from obviously has a profound impact on the life you're living now. And I think so long as you go to someone who knows what they're doing, it's an exciting experience to draw from whatever your past life has given you to work with for this lifetime.
Yeah. And there's also this idea of having a soul group, and the souls incarnate together life after life. And there may be people in your life now that you were incarnated with before. And before you're born, it's kind of like putting on a play, and you sit down with all these souls and say, well, I need to learn this lesson in my next life. Who can help me with it? And a soul may put their hand up and say, well, if you need an awful father, I could be your awful father, this kind of
Yeah,
thing. And that's when they have soul contracts, isn't it? And those kind of
yeah.
things.
No, I have a best friend who I swear was my sister in a past life. Um, we just she's almost like a sister. She is a sister, and I think we had a past life together because, um, among other things, we almost can finish each other's sentences. We, have had a time together, I'm sure, somewhere. When you go into a hypnotherapy session, can you structure it that much, or is it wiser to just say, take me where I need to go?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing, because I don't know which past life somebody's gonna see, and we get to a point in the end of the hypnotic induction where I kinda say, "Okay, now step into that past life." And I don't say, "Oh, right, step into that past life you had in 1896 when you're a woman living here." Or it's just, where are you? What's happening? And people go to all sorts of unexpected lives, and unexpected things happen. But at the same time, you can see how that life is related to the current life and how things may be coming through from there. And with the structure, it's more a kind of just saying to somebody, okay, we've seen what's happened here. So what's the next thing that happened? And how do you feel? And who's with you? And what happens next? And you ask why this thing might have happened. So you're always catching up with it and not directing where it's going. There may be a couple of times you might say, okay, now just move to another memory that would be really insightful. And again, I don't know where they'll end up.
That is fascinating. Have you ever had someone go into a past life where they were speaking a language they didn't know?
No, I've never had somebody do that. I've heard that happens, and I've had people go to lives all around the planet. I've had a small number of people who've gone to lives on other planets, but I haven't had somebody in the session start speaking in a foreign language. I have had it where in the session we've encountered somebody's spirit guide, and then they just suddenly change their voice, and it's the spirit guide that's speaking, and they start referring to themselves in the third person. Because when people get hypnotized, they get very relaxed and talk very quietly. And it seems when the spirit guide talks, suddenly their voice is very strong and very authoritative. So you can spot that quite quickly.
There's got to be another book here or two, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've got a list, what's next to write and what else is down the road.
It's the material that you're gathering and putting out there is so profound that you're going to send everybody into looking for a hypnotherapist that can take do past lives for them for sure. I know that every now and then, do people get hints of their past lives from their dreams?
Yeah, I think so. It's also, you have contact dreams. Deceased loved ones can come to you in your dreams, and they're usually very vivid, and
Hmm.
you just don't forget them, and they feel a certain way. And I think past life stuff does show up in dreams, and I don't know why. I don't know if your spirit guides are wanting to show you something, or if it's spontaneous. But I do get the impression with a lot of people that do a past life regression, it's as though they've been guided there, that their spirit guides have been nudging them subconsciously to do it for some reason.
I'm wondering um, if someone isn't open to, excuse me, if someone isn't open to hypnotherapy, if they get the information through their dreams and subconsciously it stays there until they pull it into memory.
Yeah, I suppose that could happen. I had a couple of dreams in the last couple of days that are just bizarre nonsense. I don't think they're past life. But occasionally people do come to me and say they've been having powerful dreams. And there was one guy who was having these dreams every night. It was the same thing over and over. But it's weird because that might happen, and then we go into the past life regression, and they don't see anything like what was in the dreams. They'll be in another life, and it's
Well,
that thing, you just don't know what's going on.
well, when you stop to think about it, we've probably had millions of past lives. So the variety of places you could go and situations you could tap into. I know. I think, I feel my fingers, I think I was once a concert pianist or or harp player, because my fingers always need to be busy, whether it's
Yeah.
writing or painting or knitting or crocheting or whatever. My fingers are, and I've never had piano lessons, and I've always thought that that was something I should do, but I've never done it, so I don't think it was meant to be. And at this point in my life, I'm not going to take piano lessons. I'm just not. But I think that that is a memory from a past life that is still lingering, and maybe next lifetime I'll play the piano. I'm 81 now. I'm
Yeah.
not going to do it now. Just not going to do it.
No, you
But
don't need to now.
no, I'm I'm tone deaf and stuff like that. So I did not bring
Yeah.
the equipment this lifetime in to be able to do this sufficiently, um, which is a great excuse. But it's sort of like, I think that we have so much information and material available to us in our consciousness, in our higher consciousness, and so many people don't even want to go there, don't even want to touch it, don't even want to draw from it, which I find so sad.
And also we see children that like be 4 or 5 years old and they're incredible pianists, and you wonder where that comes from. It seems like it would have to come from a past life.
Oh
They're not
yeah,
old enough to have done all those lessons and practiced so much.
but children between I would say between birth and 5 have access to a lot of material consciously that is overpowered by what parents overlay as time goes on. If you talk to very, very young children, um, they often will talk about the other side or
Yeah.
or spirit, or invisible friends and things like that. And how about those kids in India that were, when they were old enough to talk, they said that they really belonged in another village and they were married to another woman, and they finally were able to go to that village and find the woman and say that they were that woman's husband, and he proved it.
Yeah, I've read a lot of those stories, and I talked to one of the researchers. Well, actually, 3 of the researchers. But there's also birthmarks that on the child that relate to an injury the previous person had, and there's
Yes,
something coming through there that's fascinating.
there's so much on this level in this area that is not really being looked into as thoroughly as one would hope.
Yeah, I think the University of Virginia is doing some good work. It was Dr. Ian Stevenson, and then Dr. Jim Tucker took over from him. But I think Dr. Tucker's retired now, so I'm not sure who's doing it. But they got thousands of cases on file, and Jim Tucker's books are great, and Ian Stevenson's books are really good, and they go into such depth and such proper research. It's really compelling what comes up there with children remembering past lives and also remembering the space before they were born. That they call these the intermission memories, and some of
Yeah.
those memories are confirmed as well.
Well, I think that there's not enough research on that aspect of life that could help so many people understand their lives better. And you look at what information you can get from past lives, or from I know, my mother, my grandfather died the same year that I was born, and my mother said, "It's too bad you never knew him." And I said, "But I remember sitting on his bed." And she said, "You couldn't possibly, because you were just born." And I could describe the bedroom. I could describe everything in the bedroom. I could describe what was on his bedside table. I could describe his nurse. And she just said to me, "Well, you've got a really good imagination, because that's all very accurate, but you couldn't possibly have remembered it." And it wasn't until years and years later that she said, maybe you did actually see that and remember it. It was kind of like, maybe it wasn't, you weren't make believing. You actually, I said, no, I heard his watch. He put his pocket watch to my ear so I could hear it ticking. And she said, he did. And it's so that our capacity to remember things and to experience things is far greater than sometimes even our memory is.
Yeah, and
And
it's weird you have that memory. Like if you were just a little baby and you remember sitting there, did you remember it sitting as though you were a 5-year-old or
no, I was
20?
propped. I was propped.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was, I was born in March and he died. I was maybe 6, 8 months old. But
That's very early memories.
yeah, and it's sort of like we should celebrate that kind of stuff. We should embrace it and, dig deeper and hold on to those memories because they're important. And if we have those memories, then we probably have memory of things that precede that go beyond that. And I just think that your work is so important, and it highlights the fact that there is a part of us that travels through time and space, and people don't understand that. It's scary because that's our spirit. That's where we come from. We are a seed of the infinite, if you will, traveling through time, and not a physical person here for only a short stay. Now,
Yeah, that's what we
it
see from near-death experiences, isn't it? That there's so
absolutely.
much more to us, and we're not, what is it they say? We're not a human having a spiritual experience, we're a spirit having a human experience.
I'm wondering in the life review, um, if it's possible somehow to get a spirit review. Where have
Yeah,
I been? What have I done? You know, what is this is a song, We're on Our Way to Nowhere. The two of us,
yeah,
I forget what the rest of it is, but it's sort of like, I would love to, and of course that's past life stuff, but there have been so many, and only a few of them will impact each lifetime, is in my experience, that you could probably pull 100 or more that would have impact on your lifetime, but you've had millions of past lives. And
yeah. Because
it's
people talk about, sorry,
no, go ahead.
the Akashic Records is supposed to be where it's all stored, isn't it? And, there was somebody who I took into a past life regression, and we went into the space between lives, and their spirit guide took them to a place that reminded me of the Akashic Records. She said it was this building that was so amazing and so big, and when you went inside you couldn't see the other end of it, and it was floor to ceiling shelves full of books and scrolls, and they brought this big book for her and said, this is the book of your soul, and she flipped through the pages and she couldn't read it. It was like a foreign language. So we asked the librarian, why did you give us this book if we can't read it? And the librarian said, it's just to show you that everything's in the book. Everything happens for a reason. So maybe when you do die, you can read that book.
Well, maybe, frankly, I would probably spend a lifetime or two. Of course, there's no lifetimes over there, but I would want to know it all. And somebody said if you knew all of your past lives, it would make you crazy. And maybe that's true. Maybe there have been past lives where I was not a nice person, and there probably were, where I experienced things that today would not be acceptable. But it's sort of like I've gathered all this information, and what for? And of course that's another book probably, but um, it's like, okay, I've spent millions of years gathering wisdom and insight and phobias and everything else. So what do I do with it? And if I have access to all of it. And that's the problem. In a physical reality, we don't have access to all of it.
Yeah, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it would just be so overwhelming that we wouldn't be able to just operate on the physical plane.
Well, probably. I mean, if you look at somebody like Adolf Hitler, um, there's occasionally I wonder what were his past lives that brought him to this point in time for him to do what he did, and where did he go after he was here? And I look at people like that, and you go into the past and you look at people that were persecuted races and that overwhelmed people, or Aztec and Incas where they were sacrificing lives all over the place. What was the purpose of that? What could possibly have been learned from that kind of experience? And was it bringing
Yeah,
balance, or was it creating the need for balance in other lifetimes? Um, it's a whole new philosophy and way of looking at what a lifetime is and what we're here for. Are we here to learn, to grow, to gather, to pay back, to rebalance? I mean, what it's an amazing thing to think about when you realize that you're here and you're surrounded with people that you know, and is your purpose to help, or to share, or to grow from, or to learn from? I personally think we learn from every person that we touch. That's a point of touching. And but what do we do with that information? Where do we take it? What's the point of Akashic records? What are they for? And
I
so,
know. It's
it's
that yeah, it's that thing where I think that when we leave our bodies and our consciousness is free of this brain that slows it down, that we're aware of so much more, and that our intellect is so much faster, that it all starts to make sense when we get into that space.
oh,
And
probably.
yeah, and it maybe we live awful lives because our soul wants to experience what it's like to be like that, whether to be oppressed or be the oppressor, or or the bully, or be bullied, and all sorts of emotions in there.
Well, yeah, and I believe that we can't recognize something in another person unless we have been that ourselves, this life, past lives, whatever. It's sort of like you can't describe chocolate ice cream unless you've tasted it.
Yeah,
So it's if you recognize something is evil or something is bad, you've walked through it yourself and you have knowledge of it, and therefore you have judgment of it. You can't judge something you don't know.
yeah, experience is so important to really get an understanding of whatever it is, and that's
And
why we're here.
that's why we're in the physical. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
noticed our time is up, and this has gone too fast. Um, would you be willing to come back again some other time and go further into all of this?
Yeah, I'd love to. That would be great.
I would love to do that. I didn't realize we'd gone this long, this fast. Um, you want to give out the name of your book is Verified Near Death Experiences, Proof of an Afterlife. And it's a fascinating book, and it is the best read ever. I normally pace myself when I go through, I read a book a week, and I usually pace myself. With yours, I just sat and read it. Um, it
Oh,
was too good to put down. You can't put it down. You have to go one more life and see what else is out there. So, do you have other? I know we mentioned your podcasts. Are they available on YouTube?
no, they're not on YouTube. They're everywhere else. They're on Spotify and Apple, and they're on Amazon. Just everywhere there's podcasts except YouTube. I don't do video.
Okay. Well, I can understand that, the trouble I'm having with it. Um, better to be just verbal. But so your two podcasts are Alien UFO Podcast and our Paranormal Afterlife, and people should check them out definitely. But absolutely look for this book, because this book is absolutely a fabulous book to read, and you won't be able to put it down.
Well, thanks a lot for saying that. That's really nice.
Oh, it's a great book. It was fun to read. It really was. And so I'm gonna let me see. I'm still learning all of doing videos, so we're gonna walk through I think I can play my exit, and I want to thank you so much, and thank you so much for being such a good sport about me screwing up the first show.
Oh, that's all right. We all do that. I've done that.
Ah, I don't want to do it any more than once.
Yeah.
So I will make sure we get back together and talk about this further and some more. Thank you so very, very much.
Yeah, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Me too.